Hi, welcome back. I'm here with my frame loom that you watched me prep last time. And today I'm gonna show you guys how I get a piece started, and we're also going to select the palette because I realized we didn't do that last time. These days I'll almost always choose or make sure that I have the colors I need before I commit to a piece, because I'm trying to use up this huge messy stash I've got. In the past I've been pretty lucky with getting hand-me-down yarns, or the Value Village that I would go to in Toronto always had so much stock. Nowadays, the Goodwill I go to never has any yarn, which is a bummer, and I'm just kind of limited to what I've got. Let's make it a challenge. Let's see what we can find in my bag to complete this piece. As you probably noticed, I'm working off the image of a matchbook. And I think what I've got in here will be able to do it. I have a few matchbooks for reference. The colors that I choose right now might change, but I just want to make sure before I start this piece that I've got enough here to go around. So I'm thinking the bottom of my matchbook, I think I just might want to keep it like a creamy white color. One of the things I'd really like how to learn eventually is to dye my own yarn. I've not really messed around with that in the past. I've colored some white yarn with tea before to sort of give it an effect, but I've never full on dyed yarn. That would be great. Then I could just buy the natural wool and like get whatever color I want, but it's something I need to invest some time into learning. Do they not make matchbooks with like red tips anymore? Am I imagining that? That's something I'm gonna look up when I'm off my phone, because I was picturing these as like red match tips. I think this flamey red will be nice. Mixed in with some of that. The matches I have here are all this like very slightly purpley gray color that gets darker towards the tip. I'm gonna see if I have anything that can emulate that. Another thing to mention is, while in the past I've been I didn't care too much about keeping the weight of the wool consistent, especially with the textural abstract pieces. That's why I've got like thicker yarns like this, textured ones, really thin ones. Nowadays I really do try and like to keep it consistent, so that in the end I get like one uniform flat image, if that makes sense. And it's easier to blend colors together this way as well. Now, when I lived in Toronto, I probably did more buying yarn that wasn't from my stash, and the place I loved to go to the most was Romney Wools at Queen and Palmerston. I lived at college in Palmerston, so I could be like halfway through a project, walk down there in like my pajamas basically. And I have a huge selection, or sometimes I'd run out of a certain wool. Sometimes I run out of a certain wool partway through a project and I need to go color match it, so I'd tie a little piece around my finger and go there and try and find something that went with it. I miss it dearly. I think we're gonna go with brown matchsticks. with red tips. This brown is a little rich for what I'm going for, but the challenge is to use what I've got. We're not getting anything new for this weaving. This is how it gets so messy. I just pull everything out. I mean, somebody watching this is probably so upset by this. If anyone's watching this, so upset by this. I do every now and then coil them all back up, but while I'm working on a project, it's not my top priority. This hot pink is something I'm trying to find an excuse to use. I might just play it safe and go with the orange, you know me. Okay, so I'm gonna go against my own word. I should pick this up. I'm gonna put this aside, actually, since, you know, it's something I spent a lot of time on. I wanted to put some weavings up in the background to show some examples of my work, but taping them to laminated wood obviously isn't the right choice. So I've basically chosen all the colors I'm gonna use. I've gone against my own word and have not actually chosen them all out, but I see that I've got enough here to work with, and the like large main swatches of color that sort of need to be a certain color. That's not a sound effect I added in. That's real. The large swatches of color are going to be, they're gonna be handled. Okay, I'm ready to weave now. I have everything I need. Coffee, scissors, beater, darning needle. I have several of those. I weave entirely using darning needles. I do not by any means think it's the most efficient way to do things. I'm sure somebody could school me on that, but I just do a lot of small, detailed sections, and it's what I found works best for me. So all the love to my darning needles. I've broken more of them than I can count just because of the sheer amount of use they get. Here I have the warp thread, and I think what a lot of people do is weave a few or like even an inch of blank using the warp thread so that they can then fold it over and get a really nice clean hem, maybe sort of in place of what I've done here with the cardboard. I've never really done things that way. I'm getting along decently, I think, so I'm not going to start today with that. This is something that I do not need, and I'm going to throw it aside. So I was about to cut my first length of yarn, and I'm wondering if I'm not having second thoughts about making this bottom section white. Just because most of this matchbook is going to end up being white background, I'm wondering if I could possibly make it more interesting. Okay, now we have gut feelings for a reason, so I'm going to stick with my original plan. I've threaded my needle, cut an arbitrary length of this white cream color, and I'm going to begin. I already foresee this being super shaky, so I'm sorry. This first line that I'm starting is going to follow the same weave pattern as the cardboard, so it's super easy to just glide it in. Well, it's super easy when you're not holding a camera as well. First row is achieved. You leave, or I leave, 2 inches or so hanging out the side, and I make these little hills, and then I beat them down. That's simple. Now we're gonna go in and do the opposite. The second row has a little bit more resistance because now we're going against that cardboard, and the warp threads that want to naturally be raised up slightly higher than the other ones, I'm going over top of them, forcing them down. This is why my thumbs always hurt so much. because my technique is leave something to be desired. Second row is in place with, again, these hills. The reason we do this is so that you don't end up having the sides pulled in too tightly. So here on the edge, it's not too tight. There's a little like lax there so that it doesn't end up getting pulled in. No, let me beat down. And I'm gonna go back and forth doing that until I reach the next color that needs to be added. So now when I come to the end of that length I cut, I'll always make sure that there's at least an inch long tail there. And then I start in with another piece. I've started with the next piece, also leaving a little 1-inch tail. And once I have a few more rows woven above this, I'll show you how I push these in to the other side. I'm sure you could leave them out while you're working, but I just like it to look a little bit cleaner. Okay, so to make sure these tails aren't sticking up and bothering me while I work, I just tuck them back. Usually, when I'm doing this as I weave, I'll just punch right to the paper. So the cartoon at the end of my weaving process is just like falling apart, covered in holes, because I'm punching so many holes in it as I go. I'm just still going back and forth right now in my plain weave. Usually I watch a lot of bad TV, while I'm working. It has to be bad because I obviously can't look at the screen too much. So it has to be dialogue heavy, and I don't want it to be a show that I feel like I'm or a movie that I feel like I'm disrespecting by not paying attention. So yeah, a lot of bad TV gets consumed. Sometimes podcasts, although I'll admit it's a lot more rare, even though I do work better when it's a podcast instead, just because I don't have that added distraction or temptation to look up at the TV, laptop, whatever. Not to be that person, but yeah, you got any good podcast suggestions, let me know. We've reached our first fork in the road, first spot where we need to change color. This here is going to be like the little silver staple in the match book, so I'm obviously not going to weave any white there. And the way I do it is I'm not going to just continue this line and go in with gray right now, silver, whatever. I'm just going to continue my white and go back and forth and do the same on the other side. And honestly, probably go over it as well, and only fill this in when I have just an empty space with a complete border around it. This is something I do often with lettering or small details that I've learned through trial and error. I find they stick out more if you do the whole background and then do them. It's not that it's on top because there is an empty space for it, but when you're blending in the colors, they overlap slightly onto the white and seem bolder instead of the white overlapping slightly onto the existing color and eating away from it. I don't know if that makes any sense, but when we get there, I'll show you how I do it. So you can see I've got sort of an empty space forming here. One thing to be careful of when you're beating down on top of the empty space, don't want to push too hard. so that it doesn't collapse. If you're wondering, am I doing all of this crouched over uncomfortably on the hard ground? Yes I am. Sometimes I'll switch to the couch, but it's sort of like a back and forth. I don't have a comfortable weaving setup. I haven't been able to find one that really works for me yet. Alright, gonna leave it at that for today. I've been going back and forth, over, under, as I showed. That's the only weaving technique I really use. In that white section for about an hour now. Obviously I'm filming, so it's taking longer than it would otherwise, but I'm gonna attempt to finish that section tonight, maybe start filling in some of the letters, and next video I share will show me filling in some letters as well as transitioning to another color above the white section. I'm gonna finish my coffee now. It's dark out. Have a lovely evening. See you later.